What's up, guys? This is Dan for BladeReviews.com, here today with the Cold Steel Spartan. Yeah, you might have noticed on my channel I've been reviewing a lot of EDC knives lately. It makes sense, as EDC knives are what I carry the most and use the most and admittedly have the most experience with, but that doesn't stop me from picking up some other interesting knives. Big folders like this, fixed blades. I like to keep it fresh and keep it interesting, so I'm very excited about bringing this Cold Steel Spartan to the table. It's just a little bit different, and it's going to make for hopefully a pretty fun review here. So let's get right into it. I want to start off with just some quick specs. We've got a 4.5-inch blade, an overall length of 10.5 inches, and excuse me, and a weight of 7.5 ounces. So not a small knife. In fact, the first thing I noticed when I got this knife, it shipped in kind of a small cold steel box, is what the knife came in, and when I pulled it out, I was like, dang, this is heavy. It's definitely got some heft to it. So that was my first impression with the knife, and it's been a solid impression ever since. So no pun intended. Let's talk real quick about what you might use this knife for and help build a little bit of context for my review. Guys, I'm not going to spend a long time on this, but definitely a hard use folder. Definitely not an EDC knife. I did carry this as not really as an EDC knife, but I just carried it around for the heck of it to get an idea. I'm trying to understand what the knife's all about, and it actually carried pretty well, but not something I would want to carry every day for what I do, and certainly not something I'd want to use in public. It's just huge, and definitely, has the kind of weapon look to it just by virtue of its huge size and, menacing steel blade and stuff. But whether it's tactical or outdoor use, I think if you have any kind of hard use tasks, this is definitely one that is up for the challenge. I could see this being a very cool camp knife, and I've read and heard reports of people using this to cut through trees, small trees, like general bushwhacking type stuff, batoning. This is a folding knife with some fixed blade capabilities, so just keep that in mind. It's definitely not an EDC knife. So let's talk a little bit about the blade. It is made of AUS 8A steel. Very nice steel. But before I really get into the steel, I want to talk about the shape. This was based on an old Roman design and has some kind of classic looks to it. You can see it's a drop point. It's got a high hollow grind, and probably the most notable feature is this huge recurve and just the big belly. And one thing I had heard when I was doing my own research on this knife was that it's difficult to sharpen. And that would make sense with this massive recurve on it, but I wanted to test that out for myself. So I used it on some cardboard and some paper cutting tests. It chipped just razor sharp. It was shaving hairs off my arms, no problem when I got it. And it is made of AUS 8 steel, which is a lighter steel. Let me get that fingerprint off. AUS 8 is not a lighter steel, it is a softer steel, so it did lose that edge. With some work. It didn't take a whole lot of work to lose the edge on it, at least that hair shaving sharp edge. It still held a pretty good working edge, but I wanted to take that edge down and then try and sharpen it myself. And I'll say I am no master sharpener. In fact, I'm a pretty poor sharpener. I just used a Spyderco Sharp Maker on this one because I felt the rounded rods would be very good for trying to polish up this recurve, because it can be difficult to use a conventional whetstone on a knife with such a severe recurve. And I sat down, I made sure to clean my rods out really good. Ceramic rods, they build up metal chips and flakes in there, so I cleaned those out, sat down, spent some time sharpening this thing. I'll tell you, I was pretty impressed. I did restore this edge pretty much. I was shaving hair. Maybe it wasn't quite as smooth as the factory edge. It was shaving, but maybe not quite as well, but I was pleased. So it is possible to sharpen this knife. If I can do it, you can probably do it. It just takes a little bit of time and some patience. And within 10 or 15 minutes on the Sharp Maker, I brought it back to a very nice edge. So those are my thoughts on the blade. It's got some great penetrating power. all in all, I like it. Tons of utility. Be very careful though. I cut through a handkerchief and a shirt trying to clean this knife off. What happens is material gets caught here in this recurve, and then it just shears through anything. So I was lucky that it was not my hand and it was just a handkerchief, but I want to warn you, I did actually cut myself on this knife if you want to check it out. Just a little flesh wound there on the middle finger, but it's definitely sharp and it's a very cool blade. Let's take a look at the handle, which is made of rivery. It's kind of a hard plastic, reinforced plastic, and that's what Cold Steel calls their particular formulation of it. It's a very durable handle material. It's got nice texture. You can see Cold Steel further enhance this with some little grooves. I think this adds some nice visual interest, and it does provide some feedback too. One thing to note about this knife is that the liners are nested, and they're very well nested, and these are full stainless steel liners. These have not been milled out. You can see they go right up to the edge of the handle there. And since they haven't been milled out, that's part of what makes this knife so heavy, but again, it's a big knife. Really, 7.5 ounces isn't too bad when you consider how big and how strong this knife is. So I guess if I were trying to improve the knife, yeah, I would mill out the liners, but I'm not complaining really, especially when you consider the overall price of this knife and what you're getting. So taking a look at the ergonomics, they're actually very good. This is a big handle. It takes my hand easily. There's plenty of room here. This is good in both forward and reverse grips. This pommel really catches your hand. This is not a knife that's going to fly out of your hand easily, although if you're going to be doing chopping, I would recommend using a lanyard and just make sure you have the proper training and are being safe with it. But it does take the hand very nicely. And there isn't a thumb ramp really, or jimping, so that's kind of not really an issue. I do find my thumb slides a little bit, but since it's such a big handle, it's not, I'm not in danger of it flying out or anything like that. It's definitely got enough room for my hand, and the overall ergonomics are very good. So let's take a quick look at the pocket clip. Let's see, I'll close this. This thing is a bear to close. I'll talk about that in a minute, but the pocket clip is a nice black curved clip. This actually ships with 2 pocket clips, which is great because of the curved nature. There's no way you could just swap this over to the other side. You need a mirrored version of the clip, and Cold Steel did that, which is awesome, especially for people like me who are left-handed. We sometimes get left out of the party, and Cold Steel is usually pretty good about keeping the pocket clips ambidextrous, and this is a fully ambidextrous knife, which I really like. Between the deployment, the lock, and the pocket clip, this is fully ambidextrous. So big thumbs up to Cold Steel for that. I do appreciate it. And the clip is nice. It rides low, which for a lot of people would be good, but the way I use this knife and the way I carried it, I feel like I would actually benefit from having a bit more of the handle exposed, just because, and I'll be getting into this more, but the way this knife deploys, or the way I like to deploy it, was with the wave here. And the wave is basically you catch the corner of your pocket on this protrusion, and it opens the knife as you're drawing it out of your pocket. And if you don't have much room to hold on to the knife, you run in danger of cutting your finger, which is exactly what I did here. I mean, I'm not blaming it on the knife, but if I had some more room to grab on, I feel like I could get my fingers out of the way a little bit easier and maybe reduce the likelihood of cutting myself, and just making for a smoother deployment too. So that is one consideration, just something to note. And let's talk about the deployment. Like I said, it's got this wave on here, and hopefully I did a decent job of describing the wave if you're unfamiliar with it, but there's plenty of articles and videos out there, so feel free to search for that. But this thumb disc is good for just a regular deployment too. There is a lot of travel on this knife, so if you have smaller fingers, smaller thumbs, it may be difficult. I mean, it's not always easy for me, depending on where I have my hand on this knife. It can be difficult, and I also found flicking this knife open to be difficult to impossible without some serious wrist action. So I'm not going to even try it here. I'll knock the entire studio over here trying to flip this thing around. But but there is, you've got a pretty strong back spring to contend with, and just a long way to travel it. It's a big, heavy blade. Deployment is not super fast with more conventional means, but with the Emerson Wave, this thing just pops right open. I guess I shouldn't say Emerson Wave, because I'm not sure, it's not an Emerson Wave, but the Wave on there is very nice. Lockup is rock solid. This thing uses the axis lock. Sorry, not the axis lock, the triad lock. And that is Cold Steel's proprietary back lock. It's been improved. It's been designed by Andrew Demko. And I'll tell you, they did a great job when they designed this lock. It is the most solid locking knife I have seen. This triad lock, there's no play at all. That's a given. But the amount of strength that this lock can take, the amount of punishment is incredible. It's very strong, and even disengaging it is a bear. I have to hold it a certain way, or otherwise I just don't have the strength in my thumbs to disengage this thing. There you go. It's not always easy, so it took a little getting used to. Maybe the spring on mine's kind of hard, but I think all in all, it's designed to be a hard use knife, and it's gonna take a hard using kind of guy to close this, or gal, but mostly guys, I think, are going to be drawn to this knife. It is big. It's definitely got a lot of testosterone flowing through it, and so yeah, the lock is excellent. Guys, all in all, I really do like the Cold Steel Spartan. I picked mine up for around $55, which is just incredible when you think about how much knife you're getting here. The fit and finish is actually very good too. Everything lines up perfectly. The blade is centered. Let's see if I can show you that. The blade is centered. It's nicely finished. It's been given this nice blasted finish. The blade steel is good for hard use. Like I said, it's a softer steel, but it will resist chipping. So if you're going to be using this knife outdoors, this could save your edge from getting all chipped up. It'll just dent a little bit. All in all, very pleased. If you need an inexpensive hard use knife, if you can carry this, if you can find a good use for it, this big and heavy blade, then I say go right ahead. You're not going to be disappointed. It's big. It's big and it's bad. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. My name is Dan, and I'm here with BladeReviews.com. So thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I will be back soon with another knife review.